coats that I knew so well were more threadbare, shabbier. White threads were to be seen in them, and yellow stripes. Melech the cantor sang as beautifully as in the olden times, years ago. Only today his voice is a little husky, and a new tone is to be heard in the old prayers he is chanting. He weeps rather than sings the words. He mourns rather than prays. And our rabbi, the old rabbi, he has not changed at all. He was like the fallen snow when I saw him last, and today is like the fallen snow. He is different only in one trifling respect. His hands are trembling, and the rest of his body is also trembling, from old age I should imagine. Azrael the beadle, a Jew who never had the least sign of a beard, would have been exactly the same man as once on a time, years before, if it were not for his teeth. He has lost every single tooth he possessed, and with his fallen-in cheeks, he now looks much more like a woman than a man. But for all that, he can still bang on the desk with his open hand. True, it is not the same bang as once on a time. Years ago, one was almost deafened by the noise of Azrael's hand coming down on the desk. Today, it is not like that at all. It seems that he has not any longer the strength he used to have. He was once a giant of a man. Once on a time, years ago, I was happy in the little old synagogue. I remember that I felt happy without an end, without a limit. Here in the little synagogue, years ago, my childish soul swept about with the angels I imagined were flying around the carved wings of the Holy Ark. Here in the little synagogue, once on a time, with my father and all the other Jews, I prayed earnestly, and it gave me great pleasure, great satisfaction. And now here I am again in the same old synagogue, praying with the same old congregation, just as once on a time years ago. I hear the same cantor singing the same melodies as before, and I am praying along with the congregation. But my thoughts are far from the prayers. I keep turning over the pages of my prayer book idly, one page after the other, and I am not to blame for it. I come upon the pages on which are printed the Song of Songs, and I read: Behold, thou art fair, my love, behold, thou art fair, thou hast dove's eyes within thy locks. I should like to pray with the congregation, as they are praying, and as I used to pray, once on a time, but the words will not rise to my lips. I turn over the pages of my prayer book, one after the other, and, I am not to blame for it, again I turn up the Song of Songs at the 5th chapter. I am come into my garden, my sister, my spouse. And again, I have gathered my myrrh with my spice, I have eaten my honeycomb with my honey, I have drunk my wine with my milk. But what am I talking about? What am I saying? The garden is not mine. I shall not gather any myrrh, nor smell any spices. I shall eat no honey and drink no wine. The garden is not my garden. Bassi is not my betrothed. Bassi is betrothed to someone else and not to me. And there rages within me a hellish fire, not against Bassi, not against anyone at all, no, only against myself alone. Surely, how could I have stayed away from Bassi for such a long time? How could I have allowed it that Bassi should be taken away from me and given to someone else? Had she not written many letters to me, often, and given me to understand that she hoped to see me shortly? Had I not myself promised to come home, and then put off going from one festival to another so many times until at last Bassi gave up writing to me? Good Yom Tov, this is my son. That was how my father introduced me to the men of the congregation at the synagogue after prayers. They examined me on all sides, they greeted me with "Peace be unto you," and accepted my greeting in return, "Unto you be peace," as if it were no more than their due. "This is my son." "That is your son." "Here is a peace unto you." In my father's words, "This is my son," there were many shades of feeling, many meanings, joy and happiness and reproach. One might interpret the words as one liked. One might argue that he meant to say, "What do you think? This is really my son?" Or one might argue that he meant to say, "Just imagine it, this is my son." I could feel for my father. He was deeply hurt. I had opposed his wishes. I had not gone his road, but had taken a road of my own, and I had caused him to grow old before his time. No, he had not forgiven me yet. He did not tell me this, but his manner saved him the trouble of explaining himself. I felt that he had not forgiven me yet. His eyes told me everything. They looked at me reproachfully from over his silver-rimmed spectacles, right into my heart. His soft sigh told me that he had not forgiven me yet, the sigh which tore itself from time to time out of his weak old breast. We walked home from the synagogue together in silence. We got home later than anyone else. The night had already spread her wings over the heavens. Her shadow was slowly lowering itself over the earth. A silent, warm, holy Passover night it was, a night full of secrets and mysteries, full of wonder and beauty. The holiness of this night could be felt in the air. It descended slowly from the dark blue sky. The stars whispered together in the mysterious voices of the night, and on all sides of us, from the little Jewish houses, came the words of the Haggadah: "We went forth from Egypt on this night." With hasty, hasty steps I went towards home on this night, and my father barely managed to keep up with me. He followed after me like a shadow. "Why are you flying?" he asked of me, scarcely managing to catch his breath. "Ah, father, father, do you not know that I have been compared with a roe or a young hart upon the mountains of spices? The time is long for me, father, too long. The way is long for me, father, too long. When Bassi is betrothed to someone else, and not to me, the hours and the roads are too long for me. I am compared with a roe or a young hart upon the mountains of spices." That is what I wanted to say to my father in the words of the Song of Songs. I did not feel the ground under my feet. I went towards home with hasty, hasty steps on this night. My father barely managed to keep up with me. He followed after me like a shadow. With the same good Yom Tov which we had said on coming in from the synagogue on such a night as this years ago, we entered the house on this night, my father and I. With the same good Yom Tov, good year, with which my mother and Bassi used to welcome us on such a night as this, once on a time, years ago, they again welcomed us on this night, my father and me. My mother, the queen of the evening, was dressed in her royal robes of silk, and the queen's daughter, Bassi, was dressed in her snow-white frock. They made the same picture which they had made once on a time, years ago. They were not altered by as much as a hair. They were not different in a single detail. As it had been years ago, so it was now. On this night the house was full of grace, a peculiar beauty, a holy, festive, majestic loveliness descended upon our house. A holy, festive glamour hung about our house on this night. The white tablecloth was like driven snow, and everything which was on the table gleamed and glistened. My mother's festival candles